Okay, everybody, thank you so much for coming to the Mad Church Disease YouTube channel. In this particular video today, guys, we want to talk about Reverend Jimmy Swaggart dies. We want to focus in on the life, the legacy, the controversy of Reverend Jimmy Swaggart. In this particular video, we're going to dive headfirst into the history of Jimmy Swaggart. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Mad Church Disease YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into some breaking news that's shaking the Christian world today. Jimmy Swaggart, one of America's most controversial televangelists, has passed away at the age of 90. You know, when I think about the landscape of American Christianity in the 1980s, few figures loomed as large as Jimmy Swaggart. We're talking about a ministry that once was worth an astounding $150 million. Just let that sink in for a moment. But what you're going to discover today is a story of incredible heights and a devastating fall. What many people may not know is that Swaggart wasn't the only famous face in his family. He was actually cousins with the legendary Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, you want to talk about some talented genes? That's it right there. Let me take you back where it all began for Jimmy Swaggart. He entered the world on March the 15th of 1935 in a little town called Faraday, Louisiana. Now, I've done my research, and that's what's fascinating is how early he started his ministry and his journey. Can you picture this, a 15-year-old boy filled with passion for Pentecostal teachings, already preaching to anybody who would listen to him? But it wasn't until he founded Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge that things really started taking off. Many have visited this place, and let me tell you, it's even impressive, even based on today's standards. In 1975, when 1975 finally rolled around, Swaggart had already made the decision that was going to change everything for his ministry. He stepped into the world of television. The expansion of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries across America was nothing short of phenomenal. I remember watching old tapes where he would be commanding an audience. Back then, they say that his audience was roughly around 8 million viewers weekly.
A man that I'd known for so very, very, very long. 11 years before, he died with a heart attack instantly. My grandmother loved him. She was kin to him, he to her. And this was years ago, and in our little town, gambling was legal in those days, and slot machines were in every restaurant and every place of business, and this man owned a restaurant. She walked in and told him, she said, unless you get rid of those things, they're going to take you to hell. He turned to her and said, before I give them up, I'll go to hell. A few months later, this county voted a no gambling ordinance. Slot machines were hauled out. State troopers bursted them up with sledgehammers. He had the best, finest home, biggest cars that Detroit made. When he died, if I remember correctly, he had 57 suits. His son found him suffering a coronary thrombosis. He was half off the bed. He grabbed him up, got him in a car, and got him to the hospital. The doctors beat on his chest and did everything they could to try to bring him around, but he died. As I drank that water, I thought, my God, help me. It came to me, my uncle has been in hell for 11 years, and not one drop of water. With the sweep of time, you're in Jerusalem. The sun has not yet risen on the blackest day of infamy the world will ever know. The night people are there, the drunks, the whoremongers, the dopers, the thieves, the brigands, the libertines, they're there. The good people are in bed, and they're screaming, crucify, kill him. It seems like from 1,000 throats it roars, hang him on the tree, kill him. You want to scream, don't you know? Don't you know this is God? This is the Son of God.
Can you imagine the kind of reach that he would have had today? His empire grew to include a Bible college, massive crusades that filled stadiums, and even gospel albums that topped the charts. That wasn't just a ministry, it was a full-blown cultural phenomenon. What made Swaggart different was his distinctive televangelism style. He had a way of combining fiery preaching with emotional appeals that just grabbed you. But here's where things get interesting. He wasn't afraid to call out other televangelists. Remember his fierce criticism of Jim Bakker? But perhaps one of the most significant impacts came when he exposed another preacher by the name of Marvin Gorman. When he exposed Marvin Gorman's infidelity, that's what set off a whole chain of events that would change the rest of his life. Oh, the irony that would follow that situation. Now, this is where our story takes a dark turn. In 1988, everything came crashing down when Swaggart was photographed with a prostitute, Debra Murphree. I've watched the infamous I Have Sinned speech so many times, I can't even tell you when. And let me tell you, it's still as powerful today as it was back then. The raw emotion, the tears, it was television history in the making.
And I would ask that your precious blood would wash and cleanse every stain until it is in the seas of God's forgetfulness. I have sinned against you. And I beg your forgiveness. Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you. You that are nameless, most I will never be able to see you except by faith. I have sinned against you. I beg you. Forgive me. I say unto you that watch me today, through his mercy, his grace, and his love, the sin of which I speak is not a present sin, it is a past sin.
But that was the first fall. But then there's a second fall. Just when people thought that he might recover, in 1991 brought another scandal, but this time in Indio, California, with another prostitute. What really shocked many was his refusal to accept the Assemblies of God's discipline. It cost him his denomination credentials, and honestly, his reputation never, ever recovered. Despite everything, Swaggart never completely left the spotlight. The launch of SonLife Broadcasting Network showed his determination to stay relevant, and I've watched his later broadcasts, and while the audience was smaller, the signature style pretty much remained the same. The Swaggart story isn't complete without mentioning his family. His wife Frances stood by him through everything, while his son Donnie and grandson Gabriel have carried on the family ministry tradition. Jimmy Swaggart Ministries continues today in a very different form than in its heyday. As we process the news of Swaggart's passing, I can't help but reflect on the complex legacy. Here was a man who built an entire empire on faith. He fell from grace in a spectacular fashion, yet he never stopped preaching. His story changed religious broadcasting forever, showing both its potential and its pitfalls. The ministry he built still reaches millions through television and online platforms, though nothing like the 8 million weekly viewers at its peak. As news of his death spreads, reactions are pouring in from across the religious world, reminding us that despite his falls, Jimmy Swaggart remained a significant figure in American Christianity until the very end. And this is one of the reasons why, ladies and gentlemen, a person's history does matter. Let me give you the rest of my commentary. Hey guys, thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel. Listen, Jimmy Swaggart is an American phenomenon. You know, when I sit around and I think about Jimmy Swaggart and the ministry of Jimmy Swaggart, one of the things that comes to mind is how often preachers in America are in a fast pace to become famous and to get on television, because they understand in this country and in this culture, when you go on TV, it sort of changes the trajectory of everything. Now, just as I said in my Eddie Long video, there's some things that you just cannot deny about a person's life, and you have to be honest about it. Whether you like it or not, Jimmy Swaggart changed the face of American Christian broadcasting, bringing in, almost $500,000 at one particular point, they said, on a daily basis. I mean, a lot of money. He was able to build and amass a fortune over there in Louisiana that very few and far have been able to do it. But my question is, at what price and what expense do you do things? You know, I've often wanted to say this. A couple of weeks ago, when we saw that preacher that died in a bathhouse, and people were really upset about certain vloggers talking about him, and because they talk so disparagingly about him. But while I went to go watch his funeral, something that struck me and something that kept coming to me was the fact that it's not how you start a thing, but how you finish. And too often, I think a lot of American preachers and a lot of preachers in general are not considering their legacy. They're not considering what they're going to leave behind. Are you going to leave a trail of bodies? Are you going to leave a trail of children who don't know their father, don't know their mother? What exactly are you doing in your ministry and in your life? And when we consider the life of the Reverend Jimmy Swaggart, we have to really think about the fact that he changed broadcasting history, but his legacy was tarnished by prostitutes and midnight rambling. Ladies and gentlemen, it's unfortunate and it's sad to say that, but that's the fact. You can't separate Jimmy Swaggart from his scandal. And the sad part about that, ladies and gentlemen, is so many people in our lives will not be able to separate themselves from their scandal. It's important that you understand. And there's so many scandals that are constantly and consistently going on in the institutional church. And one of the reasons why I highlight these things and I speak about them on the Mad Church Disease channel is because it's not how you start a thing, it's how you finish. What's your legacy going to be? And how are you going to finish your race? Are you going to finish your race strong? Will you finish your race lifting up the name of Jesus? How are you going to finish? Regardless of what you think about Jimmy Swaggart, with all of the scandals, he never stopped preaching. He never stopped talking about the name of Jesus. Now, I want to tell you something. That's the dichotomy of this human experience sometimes. And that dichotomy of this wonderful, precious gospel that God has given and entrusted in the care of flawed human beings. That on the one hand, we have a perfect gospel, but we ourselves are flawed. And can I be honest with you? The older I get, the more I understand that we are just vessels made of clay, that God has entrusted into our care a perfect gospel, and to really give people an awesome message of who Jesus is and the radical message that Jesus carried. What's going to be your legacy? As we sign off today, I want you to understand that Jimmy Swaggart dies is not just a video that I'm making so that you will be updated, but it's just a video to get you to think about what you're going to do and how you're going to finish your race.